things, just so many things.
So
I
many
think
things.
what's important to keep in mind, I'm like government, diplomacy, like policy, regulation, like all of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
yes and no's kinds of things. So every industry has its governing body. And
yes,
some industries are regulated by the government and some are not. And I
yeah,
think that that's not a commonly known thing
yeah. I would
in
agree with that.
the population, because it's really even something that I kind of was brought to my attention through my association even just a handful of years ago.
Mhm.
Um, and to be regulated by the government means that the government is overseeing what your association is doing, and your association then controls what your industry does, which then means that everyone in that industry is sort of to be advertised and communicated as being all in the same playing field, like doctors, dentists, etc., physios. They're all regulated. We currently, right now, athletic therapists, we're in the process of getting regulated by the government, or I think our application is getting prepared.
Yeah,
But we've
and
got an
it
association.
has been so. Like Glenn Bergeron was starting that process over a
Ever.
decade
It's
ago.
a
Yeah,
massive
it's so
process.
it takes forever.
So we've got a provincial association that um, helps to control what we do and what we don't do, what we're permitted to do, what we're not permitted to do. And then we've got our national association that is national. And so there's all this stuff that goes on in terms of government and politics and all the things. So that's sort of like the healthcare side of things. In personal training, you guys still have memberships and associations that you are a part of, but the title of personal trainer isn't a protected title.
No,
So really Joe Schmo anybody doesn't even have to go to a weekend course, just
yeah,
can working out
that's
and can
true.
call themselves a personal trainer, and no one would think twice to ask them any questions about it. Whereas not everybody can call themselves an athletic therapist, not everyone can call themselves a massage therapist. Like there are credentials attached to that title,
Yeah,
legally.
yeah,
And so I think that's an interesting thing, and a difference between your industry and mine is
for sure.
I sort of I have all of these sort of like safeties put in place already that distinguish my title from someone else's.
Right.
However, schooling is an interesting concept. Interesting concept. It's a
It is
the in,
now with online universities, and like there's just so much more now than there ever was before.
Yeah, I've had this conversation a handful of times with a wide variety of colleagues. And time again, it goes back to, and this is from some of the educators in the programming, time and time it comes back to the intention of school is to provide you baseline competencies so that you don't hurt anybody.
Yeah,
That's the intention of school, where it's like, you know, the basics of everything you need to know to do your job safely, period. Like, not do your job well, not do your job to the fullest, not do your job to maximize benefit to everybody that's out there, but to do your
yeah,
job so you don't hurt anybody, period.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so when you think of it that way and you go, holy smoke, so for 4 years, 7 years, whatever it is, you study these baseline competencies to make sure that you never hurt anybody versus someone who took a weekend course. That's like, so scratching the surface versus depth and significant more understanding. So
yeah,
I think that that's an interesting point that probably should be recognized, where it's like the depth of knowledge
yeah,
and the intention behind displaying that knowledge is critically important.
yeah.
So
And that's a
that's
great way of breaking it down and explaining it to someone who, I mean, I get so emotional about it because it's like
no,
the last 20, you've never been upset about this. This is the last like 20 years that I've focused on this. And so it can be frustrating. And so it's helpful to have that outside perspective that's just like, okay, this is the neutral based information for anyone who,
yeah,
is looking for a personal trainer or a coach or a wellness
yeah.
advocate to provide structure and accountability. Like it's crazy because there's so many layers within and so many hats that you need to put on under the title personal training as well. Like when you go and you provide someone with 60 minutes of movement in person, there are about 65 million things going on that you need to address and be good at in order for that person to keep coming back and to get results and to enjoy themselves and et cetera, right? So I think that explaining it as simply as that the undergrad itself is the the depth, and that is the depth that you need to go to get to that baseline of not injuring anyone. And then, you know, how many courses have we taken over and above our our degree?
100%. But and this is where I think it comes down to the individual, and I think this is why, you know, this works really well for us, is because we highly value education, and on a daily basis I go through significant amounts of imposter syndrome where I go, honestly, I'm like, I don't know enough, I didn't do that right, that could have been better, okay, this person told me this, well, I pick up on that, ooh, and like I always am pressuring myself to be better. And every situation that comes through the door, I'm like, okay, what can I learn from this interaction with this person? Maybe it's anxiety, like maybe it's not even constructive. I don't know yet, but to me, that's
I'll let you know what I think, but finish.
To me, that's part of the motivator to always do better, because my job as a practitioner is to do better.